Everyone abandoned the billionaire until a poor 8-year-old girl walked into the courtroom, raised her hand, and shouted, "I'll protect him." What she exposed shattered the case, shook the judge, and revealed a truth no one saw coming. "I'll protect him," cried the 8-year-old girl with tear-stained cheeks and trembling hands, just moments after the millionaire's own lawyer stormed out of the courtroom in shame. The judge froze. The cameras blinked. Who was this child? And why would a poor little girl stand in front of the most hated man in the city and defend him with her whole heart? 2 years ago, Amaya had nothing. No shoes, no father, no home. She was found curled up on a park bench in the freezing rain, clutching her mother's sweater and whispering to the night, "I miss you, Mama." The world walked past her, until he didn't. Elias Monroe, ruthless in business, envied by Wall Street, adored by social media, had just closed a $1 billion deal. That night, he was meant to celebrate in a penthouse. But something stopped him. A child. Alone. Shivering under a streetlight. He gave her his coat, bought her warm food. But it did not stop there. He came back the next night, and the next. He taught her how to read, how to dream again. He called her champ when no one else even called her by name. He never told anyone, not his board, not his fans, that every Sunday he braided a little girl's hair and helped her with math homework. To the world, Elias was a calculating billionaire. To Amaya, he was the only reason she was still alive. But now, Elias sat in a courtroom, wrists cuffed, labeled a criminal, accused of stealing from the very people he once helped. The media smeared him, former friends testified against him, and the lawyer who had once promised to defend him to the end, he threw down his papers and said, "This case is unwinnable. I am not destroying my reputation for a man like you." Then, silence. Until the sound of soft footsteps echoed across the floor. Small. Uninvited. Barely noticed at first. Amaya. Tiny. Torn hoodie. Standing in front of the judge, voice shaking. "He is not a thief. He is the only person who ever gave me a reason to live." The judge blinked. The crowd gasped. The prosecutor narrowed her eyes. "Child," the judge asked, voice soft, "do you know what it means to speak in a trial like this?" She nodded. Tears slid down her face, but her voice didn't break. "I was homeless. I had no one, no name, no hope. He fed me. He never asked for anything. And I know, deep in my heart, he would never steal from anyone." She looked back at Elias, who could barely meet her eyes. Not the confident man who taught her how to tie her shoes. Just a broken soul the world had already thrown away. "If no one will defend him," she whispered, stepping between him and the court, "then I will." And in that moment, the courtroom did not see a poor child. They saw a warrior in a hoodie. "Objection! She is a child. This is not a fairy tale." But the judge raised his hand. His eyes were locked on Amaya, not with pity, but with something closer to awe. "Let her speak," he said quietly, and so she did. Amaya stood on her tiptoes behind the witness box, gripping the edge so tightly her knuckles turned white. Her legs trembled, but her voice, when she found it, came straight from the deepest part of her heart. "The first time I met Elias Monroe, I had not eaten in 3 days." Her voice cracked, but she did not stop. "He gave me food, but he also gave me something else. He gave me my name back. He looked at me like I mattered. The court reporters paused. Even the cameraman lowered his lens. I know I am just a little girl, and I do not have big words or a fancy job like the others in this room, but I know what it feels like to be forgotten. She glanced at Elias, who could barely meet her eyes. And I know what it feels like to be saved. The prosecutor stood, face tight. Enough of this performance. She is not a witness, she is a distraction. But Amaya turned to her. No, you are the ones who do not see the truth. You say he stole money, but you never asked why he gave away so much. You never asked about the shelters, the families he fed, or the kids like me who got to go to school because of him. Gasps rippled through the room. The prosecutor flipped through her notes, clearly shaken, because none of that was in the case file. And Amaya was not finished. Do you know why there are no records of what he did for me? She pointed at Elias. Because he never wanted credit. He did it because it was right. In the back of the courtroom, a woman stood. Then another. Then a young man. One by one, people began rising. Strangers who had once been helped by Elias in silence. They came forward quietly, tearfully. He paid for my mother's cancer treatment. He gave me a job when I got out of prison. He saved my son's life. The prosecutor's hands began to shake. And Elias? He sat in stunned silence as people he never expected to see again stood up for him, just like he once stood for them. But the moment that shattered the courtroom was when Amaya pulled something from her pocket. A crumpled drawing. She unfolded it carefully. It was a picture she had drawn years ago. A little girl holding hands with a tall man in a coat, both smiling under a big sun. I drew this the day I decided I wanted to be just like him, she whispered. Not rich, not famous, just kind. She looked straight at the judge. Tears streaked her face. Her voice, fragile but blazing with truth, echoed across the room. If that is a crime, then maybe the whole world is guilty. And for the first time since the trial began, the judge leaned back, and his expression changed. He was not looking at a defendant anymore. He was looking at a man the world had misjudged, and a child who never did.
The judge stared at the little girl's drawing, speechless. It was not evidence in the legal sense, but it pierced something deeper, something the law books could never reach. But just as the mood in the courtroom began to shift, the prosecution struck back. "Your Honor," the prosecutor said sharply, "this is all very touching, but none of this proves Mr. Monroe did not commit fraud. His company lost millions of investor dollars. He signed the transfers himself. We have the documents. The child's emotions are irrelevant." And for a moment, it felt like the story might end right there. Elias hung his head. The cuffs on his wrists dug into his skin. He whispered to himself, "I never wanted her to see this side of me." But Amaya heard him. She turned, eyes fierce. "No," she said, "you are not the villain here. You were trying to protect someone, weren't you?" The courtroom stilled. And then slowly, Elias raised his eyes. His voice cracked. There was a breach. An insider. Someone on the board. They threatened to expose confidential data that would harm hundreds of families, unless I took the fall. Murmurs swept across the room. The judge leaned forward. "Why would you not reveal this earlier?" Elias looked directly at Amaya. "Because they said they would shut down the shelters, the programs, everything that helps kids like her. I thought, if I stayed quiet, at least they would survive." Tears welled up into Maya's eyes again. "But they were still going to destroy you." He smiled faintly. "I could live with them hating me, but not with letting them hurt the people who trusted me most." Suddenly, a voice called from the back. "I can prove he's telling the truth." A young woman in a maintenance uniform stepped forward. She clutched a flash drive tightly in her hand. "I work in the IT department. I stayed late one night, and I saw them deleting files off the server, Elias's files. I made a copy. I was too scared to come forward until I saw her." She pointed to Amaya. "That little girl reminded me of what is right." The prosecution's face went pale. "Objection! This evidence has not been verified." But the judge stood. "Then we will verify it, right now." The bailiff brought a laptop. The woman inserted the flash drive. Everyone gathered around as the screen lit up. Emails, transactions, signatures, all pointing not to Elias Monroe, but to 3 of his board members who had rerouted funds and framed him to protect themselves. Gasps filled the courtroom. The judge's jaw tightened. "Bailiff, issue warrants for the immediate arrest of Henry Callahan, Judith Vance, and Malcolm Reed." Cameras flashed wildly. The courtroom exploded in chaos. But in the middle of it all, Amaya stayed still, clutching Elias's hand. "You tried to protect everyone, Elias. You should have let someone protect you too." And for the first time in years, he let someone hold him, not as a CEO, not as a symbol, but as a man who had nearly lost everything and was now saved by the smallest voice in the room. The courtroom was silent now. No more objections, no more lies. The 3 corrupt board members were in custody. The truth was out, and Elias Monroe was finally free. But even with the handcuffs gone, Elias stood frozen, as if unsure how to step forward, until a tiny hand slipped into his. Amaya. She looked up at him with the same fearless eyes she had when she walked into that courtroom. "You are free now," she whispered. He nodded, but tears were already falling. "Only because you stood for me when no one else did." The judge rose to deliver the final words. "This court acknowledges Mr. Elias Monroe as not guilty. The case is dismissed. His record is cleared." Applause broke out, but Elias was not listening. He was staring at the girl who saved him, the one the world had overlooked. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed him, begging for a statement. "What will you do now, Mr. Monroe?" one shouted. Elias looked down at Amaya and smiled, voice trembling. "I am going to raise my daughter." The world froze. Amaya looked up in shock. "Daughter?" Elias kneeled beside her, heart on his sleeve. "If you want, I want to make it real. I want to adopt you. Not out of gratitude, but because you are the greatest gift this world ever gave me." Amaya burst into tears. She wrapped her arms around him and whispered, "I always wanted to go home, and now I think I found it." That moment went viral, not because a billionaire was proven innocent, but because a poor, brave little girl with nothing, not even a voice, became the reason justice was done. The same girl who once slept behind a dumpster now had a bedroom, a family, and a future. Because she believed one thing: love does not ask if you are powerful. It only asks if you will stand when it matters. Later that month, a photo sat on Elias's desk. Amaya's old drawing, a tall man in a coat, a little girl holding his hand, a bright yellow sun above them. And below it, in her handwriting, "He saved me, then I saved him." If this story touched your heart, please consider subscribing to our channel.
We share powerful, true-style stories like this to remind the world one voice, one act of kindness can still change everything. Thank you for watching. See you in the next story.